Hello. The disgusting, horrific events in Cologne New Year's Eve hit the world's headlines, but only a week after the events due to cover-ups by the authorities. In this case, it appears to avoid anti-refugee and migrant agitation spilling out onto the streets, but also, one suspects, as in so many of these cases, because the victims were women. The authorities just simply couldn't be bothered about it. So far, reports are still trickling in. The number of complaints are running in the hundreds and rising. The perpetrators were men of predominantly North African and Middle Eastern appearance. Despite the fact that many were inebriated, it can safely be assumed that the vast majority involved in this mass frenzied assault were from a Muslim background. Pegida have already taken advantage, protesting on the streets of Cologne. The gathering addressed by Tommy Robinson, who said during the rally, "Islam is a cancer." He is launching the British equivalent in February. Women's groups, anti-fascist anarchists, were first out on the streets of Cologne, however, protesting against this violence targeted towards women. They were well aware that this is a worldwide phenomenon and it's not only Muslim men involved in these outrages. This violence, sexual and otherwise, aimed at women and children, is a global epidemic. The ongoing civil wars in the Democratic Republic of Congo have resulted in the mass rape of millions of women and children. In South Africa and elsewhere, there is so-called corrective rape against lesbians. India has seen high-profile murders and rapes of women using public transport. Mexico, where there has been thousands of mass murders and rapes of women. ISIS fighters are literally enslaving their rape victims. And don't forget, here in Europe, rape camps run by Serbian nationalists during the Bosnian conflict. The victims, Muslim women. Also, here in the UK, decades of sexual abuse by organised gangs of mostly Asian men from a Muslim background. Young, vulnerable, working class girls, the victims, numbering many thousands. Police indifference, establishment and political cover-up, plus the establishment paedophile scandal reaching back generations, blanket cover-ups, whitewashing by all factions of the establishment involved. Inquiries indefinitely delayed, waiting for the perpetrators to die of old age. Leon Britton and Greville Janner being two cases, for example. Then there is the abuse on the epic scale, reaching back into the mists of time by the Catholic Church of helpless women and children. Rape, extreme sadism on the most vulnerable members of society, and with the usual blinding hypocrisy, the Church issuing a few mealy-mouthed apologies, blaming the permissive society, and then it's back to business as usual. Truly, looked upon from any perspective, there is a war being waged against women and children by states, organised gangs, religion, the establishment, and by some nasty individual men, with rape as the main weapon. Feminists describe this as rape culture, and really, how can you disagree? Governments, organised religions, police forces cover it up or ignore it, and are an active part of this problem in most cases. Cologne is merely the most recent example and sadly a minor one in comparison to what I've just mentioned. Us anarchists are mostly not afraid of inconvenient truths, even if in some cases it involves refugees or race relations, for example. So, Tommy Robinson, it's not Islam that's the cancer. It's the rape culture worldwide, which obviously does involve Islam on many levels, particularly the ideological one with its denigration of women. But it's the same for all organised religions. Unless you admit to a problem, how can you even begin to tackle it? Immediately, as always, it requires the victims and potential victims to mobilise on the streets. The state, government, the system are and will do next to nothing. Simply, they are a huge part of the problem anyway. Women have to come out en masse with justified rage and indignation and take to the streets. feel and experience their collective strength like they've done in the past, force violence and sexual abuse of women and children to the top of the political and social agenda. If this results in mass disruption, the world turned upside down, revolution, bring it on. How else are we to combat this epidemic of abuse and rape? The victims are, as always, mostly from the working and oppressed classes. By any stretch of the imagination, it's entirely legitimate for them to take direct action, to do whatever it takes to confront these brutal, horrendous crimes against humanity. It's up to the angry women themselves to set this process into motion and keep control of it, not allowing it to be diverted or hijacked by authoritarian groups from any part of the political spectrum, or even creepy, self-proclaimed middle-class, non-sexist men. What sympathetic men, and there are many, the vast majority, who are sickened by these horrors can do, will only emerge as women take to the streets. Anything that attempts to channel or repress this anger and desire for meaningful change is also part of the problem. Mass, angry, uncontrollable street action is all part of the revolutionary process to overthrow the societies, ideologies, and institutions that oppress humanity as a whole. So, no more victims and no more anything like this at all. Direct action. Let's get out with the women and support them when they do it by every means possible. Bye.